I'm Margaret, 71, and when I opened my front door that afternoon, my daughter was waiting like she owned the place. She had that look in her eyes, the one that said my bank account was her inheritance and she was tired of waiting. They thought my money was theirs. I decided it wasn't. Hit like if you've ever been taken for granted, I need to know I'm not alone. Claire was standing there with Marcus right behind her, that smug boyfriend of hers who'd been living off my generosity for 8 months. She didn't even say hello. Just pushed past me into my own living room and said, "Where's the card, Mom?" Like I was some confused old woman who'd misplaced her reading glasses. Marcus had his phone out, probably calculating how much damage control this was going to cost them. I could see it in their faces. Panic mixed with that entitled rage that comes when someone threatens your meal ticket. "What card?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. The debit card to my checking account. The one I'd given her for emergencies when I first moved in with them 5 years ago. The one that had become their personal ATM. Claire's voice got that sharp edge it always got when she wasn't getting her way. "Don't play games, Mom." The bank called about a declined transaction. "Where is it?" That's when I knew they'd been trying to take more money. Again. That monthly check keeps my roof and meds paid. It's not a family piggy bank. I worked 43 years as a school secretary, saving every penny I could, watching every dollar so I could have dignity in my old age. Not so my daughter could fund her boyfriend's dreams and her shopping habits. Let me tell you how this started, because it didn't happen overnight. 5 years ago, when Harold died, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Not because my husband was gone, God knows I loved that man for 48 years, but because my daughter opened her arms and her home to me. Said I shouldn't be alone. Said family takes care of family. I believed her. Those first months were beautiful. We'd sit at her kitchen table with our coffee in the morning, and she'd ask about Dad, about our early years together. I'd tell her stories she'd never heard, and she'd laugh in all the right places. I brought my favorite mug from home, the blue one with the little chip on the handle that Harold never wanted me to throw away. Claire made sure it was always clean and waiting for me. I felt wanted. I felt loved. I helped around the house too. Cooked dinner most nights, because I enjoyed it and Claire was always so busy with work. My old apron got torn in her washing machine, and she bought me a new one, bright yellow with little daisies on it. Said it made the kitchen feel more like home. We planted a garden together that first spring. I have a photo from that day, Claire and me kneeling in the dirt, both of us laughing at something. Both of us covered in soil and happy. I thought this was how I'd spend my remaining years. Safe. Loved. Part of something. But somewhere between year 1 and year 2, things shifted. The coffee mornings got shorter. The stories weren't as welcome. And Marcus moved in. Suddenly my presence felt like an intrusion instead of a blessing. Suddenly my modest social security check started looking like found money to them. It started small, Claire asking to borrow $20 here, $40 there. Always with a good reason. Always promising to pay it back. Then she suggested it would be easier if I just gave her my debit card for household expenses. Said it would streamline things. Make me less of a burden. What a fool I was. What an old, trusting fool. The signs were everywhere once I started paying attention. Bank statements that didn't add up. Groceries that cost twice what they should have. A new television in their bedroom that appeared overnight. Marcus suddenly having money for his photography equipment and weekend trips with his buddies. Claire getting her nails done twice a month and shopping for clothes I never saw her wear around the house. When I finally got the courage to look at my statements properly, really look at them, not just glance at the balance and trust everything was fine, I nearly vomited. $300 to some electronics store. $450 to a restaurant I'd never heard of. $600 cash withdrawal on a Tuesday when I was home alone all day. Another $800 to something called Creative Solutions Photography, Marcus's little hobby business that never seemed to photograph anything except money leaving my account. In 18 months, they'd taken over $13,000. $13,000 of my fixed income. Money I'd need for medical bills, for emergencies, for my own funeral someday. Money I'd earned by getting up at 6 every morning for 4 decades and making sure the principal's coffee was ready and the attendance sheets were perfect. I sat in my little bedroom that night, the room that used to be Claire's craft room before I became her financial plan, and I felt something I hadn't felt since the day Harold got his cancer diagnosis. Pure, cold terror. Not fear of dying, but fear of living. Fear of being completely helpless. Fear of having nowhere to go and no money to get there. But terror is funny. Sometimes it burns away everything except clarity. I looked at those statements until my eyes burned, adding up the numbers, seeing patterns I'd been too trusting to notice before. Then I got dressed and drove to the bank. I need to open a new checking account, I told the young woman behind the desk. Her name tag said Jennifer, and she had kind eyes behind her glasses. I need to transfer my Social Security deposit to the new account, and I need a new debit card that only I will have access to. Jennifer didn't ask why. Maybe she'd seen this before. Maybe she could read the situation on my face. She just pulled out the paperwork and helped me step by step. I asked for copies of every transaction from the past 2 years. Every single one. I wanted documentation of exactly where my money had gone. The new account would be ready in 3 business days. The new card would arrive in the mail within a week. I hid the paperwork in the bottom of my jewelry box, underneath the velvet pouch that held Harold's wedding ring. Every night I'd take it out and read through it again, making sure I understood exactly what I was doing. Those next few days felt like walking through a minefield. I had to act normal. Had to smile when Claire complained about money. Had to nod sympathetically when Marcus talked about his big photography dreams. Had to pretend I didn't notice when Claire went through my purse looking for cash while I was in the bathroom. Had to bite my tongue when she mentioned needing to buy groceries and held out her hand like my wallet was her property. The mail came on Thursday morning. Claire was at work, Marcus was still asleep, and I was alone when I heard the mail truck. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out right there on the front steps. But there it was. A plain white envelope with my new debit card inside. I hid it in my jewelry box and spent the rest of the day trying to figure out how to tell them. I didn't have to. They figured it out themselves. Friday afternoon, I was reading in the living room when I heard Claire on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice kept getting louder and more frustrated. What do you mean declined? Try it again. No, try it again right now. Long pause. That's impossible. There's money in that account. I know there's money in that account. Marcus came downstairs a few minutes later, and they huddled together whispering. Then Claire came into the living room with her phone still in her hand and that dangerous look I remembered from when she was a teenager and caught breaking curfew. Mom, there's something wrong with your card. The grocery store says it's been declined, but I know you just got your check deposited this week. I looked up from my book. It was a romance novel about a woman my age finding love again, which felt like reading fantasy at that moment, and I said the words I'd been practicing for 3 days. There's nothing wrong with the card. I canceled it. The silence that followed was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Marcus actually stepped backward like I'd slapped him. Claire's face went through about 6 different expressions before settling on shocked outrage. You what? I canceled the card. I opened a new account. My money goes there now. Why would you do that? Claire's voice was getting shrill. We had an arrangement. I handle the household expenses and you handle over $13,000 of my expenses that had nothing to do with this household. I stood up then, leaving the book open on the chair. I have the bank statements, Claire. All of them. Every withdrawal, every purchase, every cash advance. $13,000 in 18 months. Marcus found his voice. That's impossible. We never. $600 to Creative Solutions Photography. Your business, Marcus. $890 at Dave's Electronics for a camera lens. $450 at Romano's restaurant, that fancy place downtown where you took Claire for her birthday, while I ate a peanut butter sandwich at home. Shall I continue? Claire was shaking now, but whether from anger or panic, I couldn't tell. Those were legitimate expenses. You live here too. You benefit from. I benefit from a roof over my head that I pay rent for with my presence and my cooking and my cleaning. I don't benefit from your boyfriend's photography equipment or your dinners out or your shopping sprees while I stretch my grocery budget and skip my heart medication because I can't afford both food and pills in the same week. That's when the real Claire came out. The one I'd been too willfully blind to see for too long. You ungrateful old woman. Do you know what it costs us to house you? To feed you? To deal with your constant presence in our lives? That money doesn't even begin to cover what you owe us. What I owe you. My voice was quiet, but something in it made both of them step back. I owe you for the privilege of being stolen from? For being lied to? For being treated like a walking social security check instead of your mother. Marcus tried to play mediator. Look, Margaret, I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Why don't we all sit down and... The only misunderstanding is that I thought my daughter loved me enough not to rob me blind. But we're past that now. Claire's face was red now, her voice getting uglier by the minute. Fine. You want to control your precious money? Good luck paying for assisted living on $800 a month. Good luck finding someone else to take care of you when you're too old and sick to wipe your own. Claire. The voice came from the front door. We all turned to see Daniel, my grandson, standing in the doorway. He's 25 now, a paralegal, and he'd been coming by more often lately. I thought it was just because he missed his grandfather and wanted to spend time with family. Now I realize he'd probably been noticing things I was too ashamed to admit to myself. Daniel, you don't understand, Claire started, but he held up his hand. I understand perfectly. I've been watching this for months. The expensive dinners you post on social media while Grandma eats crackers for lunch. The new car payments that somehow come out of her account. The cash withdrawals every time you want spending money. He walked over and stood next to my chair. I also understand that what you've been doing is called financial elder abuse, and it's a felony. The room got very quiet. Marcus went pale. Claire opened and closed her mouth like a fish. I have copies of everything, I said quietly. Bank statements, receipts, photographs of purchases made with my money. And Daniel has been helping me document the pattern. Daniel nodded. Grandma came to me last week. She was scared and confused and thought she was losing her mind because the money never seemed to stretch far enough. We went through 18 months of statements together. If you want to involve lawyers and police, we have everything we need. Claire tried one more approach, the one that had worked for years. Her eyes filled with tears and her voice got small and vulnerable. Mom, I'm sorry. We never meant for it to get this bad. Things have been so tight and we thought you wouldn't mind helping family. Helping family means asking permission. It means transparency. It means respecting the person you're asking for help. I picked up my book and marked my place with a bookmark Harold had given me 30 years ago. What you've been doing is stealing. And it ends today. So what happens now? Marcus asked. He was trying to sound tough, but I could hear the fear underneath. Now you have a choice. You can accept that I control my own money from now on, and we can try to rebuild some kind of relationship based on honesty and respect. Or you can continue to feel entitled to my income, in which case Daniel and I will be filing a police report on Monday morning. Claire was crying now, but they were angry tears. Where are you going to go? Who's going to take you in? You're 71 years old with no family except us. That hurt. Of course it hurt. Because she was partly right. I didn't have many options. But I'd rather live in a studio apartment eating ramen noodles than stay somewhere I was valued only for my bank balance. I'll figure it out, I said. What I won't figure out is how to keep living with people who see me as a source of income instead of a human being. Daniel put his hand on my shoulder. Actually, Grandma, you have options. I've been doing some research. There are senior communities that work with people on fixed incomes. Nice places. Safe places. Places where you'd be valued for who you are, not what you can provide. I could see Claire calculating. How much would they lose if I left? How would they cover the rent and utilities and groceries without my contribution? The apartment was expensive because it was in a trendy neighborhood that fit their image of themselves. Without my $800 a month, they'd have to face reality. Let's not get dramatic, Marcus said. We can work this out like adults. Adults ask before they take, I said. Adults don't steal from their elderly parents. Adults don't lie and manipulate and gaslight someone they claim to love. For the next 2 hours, we sat in that living room and hashed out the truth. They tried every manipulation in the book. Tears. Anger. Guilt. Threats. Promises to do better. Claims that they'd pay everything back. Accusations that I was being unreasonable and cruel. But I held firm. My money was my money. If they wanted me to stay, they needed to pay fair market rent for my room. They needed to buy their own groceries and pay their own bills. They needed to ask permission before borrowing anything, and they needed to pay it back promptly. And they needed to acknowledge what they'd done and apologize sincerely. Marcus stormed out first. He threw some clothes in a bag and said he was going to stay with friends until Claire came to her senses. Claire lasted another 3 days. 3 days of cold shoulders and passive-aggressive comments and attempts to make me feel guilty for protecting my own financial security. On Wednesday, she announced she was moving in with Marcus and his buddy's place across town. She took most of the furniture, it was hers anyway, and left me in an apartment I couldn't afford on my own. But she also left me in peace for the first time in years. Daniel helped me find a small one-bedroom place in a senior-friendly complex about 20 minutes away. It cost exactly half my monthly income, leaving me with $400 for food and utilities and the small pleasures that make life worth living. The apartment came furnished with basic pieces, nothing fancy but everything clean and functional. The first night in my own place, I sat on the little balcony with a cup of tea in my favorite mug. The blue one with the chip that I'd rescued from Claire's kitchen before I left. I watched the sunset and felt something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. No one was going through my purse. No one was monitoring my spending. No one was making me feel guilty for wanting to buy a book or a small bouquet of flowers for the table. I planted herbs in small pots on the balcony. Basil and parsley and chives. Nothing fancy, but something growing and green and mine. I bought myself a new romance novel without checking the price first. I went to the corner diner and ordered pancakes on a Tuesday morning just because I wanted them. Small pleasures, but they felt like victories. The reconciliation with Claire is happening slowly. She calls every few weeks now, usually when she needs something but sometimes just to talk. We're building new boundaries, new expectations. She's not allowed to have access to my accounts, and I'm not allowed to be her backup plan when life gets expensive. It's awkward and sometimes painful, but it's honest. Marcus is out of the picture. Apparently, when Claire couldn't provide financial support anymore, his feelings cooled considerably. She's back to working full-time and living within her means, which has been an adjustment. But maybe a necessary one. Daniel stops by once a week. We cook dinner together and talk about his work, his girlfriend, his plans for the future. He never makes me feel like a burden or an obligation. He makes me feel like what I am, his grandmother who loves him and wants to hear about his life. Sometimes I think Harold would be proud of the man Daniel's become. I know I am. The neighbors here are kind. Mrs. Patterson next door is 83 and sharper than most people half her age. She taught me to play bridge, and now we have a weekly game with 2 other women from the complex. We complain about our grown children and brag about our grandchildren and argue about politics and laugh until our stomachs hurt. Yesterday, I got my hair cut at the salon downstairs. Nothing dramatic, just a trim and a style that makes me feel put together. The stylist is a young woman named Rosa who emigrated from El Salvador 5 years ago. She told me about her children while she worked, and I told her about Daniel. We talked about the courage it takes to start over at any age, to leave behind what's familiar and build something new. Because that's what I did, really. At 71, I started over. I chose myself over the comfort of being taken care of, even when that care came with a price that was too high to pay. I chose uncertainty over the certainty of being used. I chose dignity over financial security, though it turned out I could have both if I was willing to live smaller and more simply. It took me 7 decades to choose myself, and choosing myself saved more than my money. It saved my sense of worth, my peace of mind, my ability to sleep at night without wondering what would be missing from my account in the morning. It saved my relationship with my grandson and gave me the possibility of eventually rebuilding something real with my daughter. Most importantly, it saved me from disappearing entirely. From becoming just a source of funds with no needs, no opinions, no right to my own resources. From accepting that my value was purely financial and that I should be grateful for any scraps of affection that came with the theft. I look at the women in my bridge group, and I see the same thing in all of us: relief. Relief at being in charge of our own lives again, at not having to justify our existence to anyone, at being able to spend our money on things that bring us joy instead of things that benefit people who don't value us. Mrs. Patterson bought herself a new television last month, a big one, just because she wanted to watch her stories in high definition. Mrs. Chen joined a gym and goes to water aerobics 3 times a week. Mrs. Williams adopted a small dog from the shelter, a little terrier mix who adores her completely and costs her a fortune in toys and treats. We're all choosing ourselves, some for the first time in decades. And we're not sorry about it. If you liked this, subscribe and tell me in the comments if you've had to set hard boundaries. Tell me about the moment you decided your peace of mind was worth more than keeping everyone else happy. Tell me about choosing yourself, no matter how late in life it happened. Because I need to know I'm not alone in this journey of putting myself first after a lifetime of putting myself last. And if you're watching this because someone in your life is taking advantage of an elderly person's finances, know this: it's never too late to speak up. It's never too late to help someone reclaim their dignity and their independence. It's never too late to choose courage over comfort, truth over peace, self-respect over being liked. The tea is getting cold, but the sunset is perfect, and my little herb garden is thriving in the evening light. I have $437 in my checking account, and every penny of it is mine to spend as I choose. I have a small apartment that smells like the lavender candle I bought myself last week. I have neighbors who wave when they see me and a grandson who visits because he wants to, not because he has to. I have my dignity back. I have my freedom back. I have myself back. And that's worth every hard conversation, every uncomfortable truth, every moment of uncertainty that brought me here. At 71, I'm finally living my own life on my own terms. It's smaller than the life I had before, but it's entirely mine. And that makes all the difference.